Hey, what's up, everybody?
And welcome back to Mile Higher Podcast, episode 352. I am your host, Kendall.
I'm Josh.
We are joined by our production team, Janelle and Ian.
Hello.
Hey, guys. Well, anyway, guys, today we are getting into a case that is absolutely infuriating and mind-blowing. This one truly had me, as we were preparing for the episode, I was leaning one way and then just so many twists and turns and the unexpected in this one. Yeah. It's very difficult on so many levels and really, just really frustrating. And we have a lot of information to go over, but before we jump in, we do have an exciting announcement for all of you. CrimeCon, if you didn't know, is finally coming to Denver. Now, we have never gone to a CrimeCon before, but it's right here in our backyard, so we decided to go this year. So it's September 5th to 7th. It's at the Gaylord Hotel, and we are going to be doing a meet and greet, which I think this will be the first meet and greet we've ever done, right?
It's been years.
Have we done?
We've done one before RTX Austin.
Right. It's
long
been,
time ago.
Oh my gosh, probably 5-6 years ago.
Yeah.
It's been a long time, and we
haven't left the studio in a while.
Yeah.
But we're going to do it because
we're a little on the introverted side.
But to get over to CrimeCon Denver.
But we actually truly want to meet everybody,
Yes.
and I think it's going to be a really cool experience. I've always heard CrimeCon is quite the experience. So our meet and greet is on Saturday, September 6th, and it's from 1:40 to 3:40. And the meet and greet is first come, first serve.
Mm-hmm.
That. And having a badge does not guarantee a spot at the meet and greet, so just keep that in mind. And our foundation, Higher Hope, will also have a booth in the exhibit hall all 3 days, and various team members and hosts will be there throughout the weekend. So we're really excited about that.
Yeah,
And
hopefully, Ian will be there.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be around. Janelle, of course, will be there. And then hopefully some of our other folks here at Mile Higher Media will be there. Get to meet some of them as well. So, yeah, we're hoping to just show up and represent, and excited to meet some of you out there, and also just connect with other creators and, make some connections and meet some families, things like that, and just check it out overall.
Yeah.
Because maybe we'll go, in the future as well.
Outside of our state.
Exactly. Maybe we'll venture outside of our state lines for next year. But
Well, we truly love meeting fans. It's always so awesome to meet you guys in person and put faces to the screen names, because, after a while it's hard when you don't actually get to see and hear from people beyond just text. So we meet people all the time just out and about around Denver and stuff, and when we travel, and that's always a great experience. So I'm excited to get to meet tons of people in a controlled environment. It's going to be really, really fun. So if you're interested, you can use the code MILEHIGHER, which will provide you with 10% off the standard badge. And if you use that code, it will benefit the Higher Hope Foundation. So we would love for you to do that, and we look forward to seeing you there, hopefully.
we'll have a link for you in the show notes and description, so you can easily find your way to how to purchase a badge. And don't forget that code MILEHIGHER will give you 10% off a standard badge. But September will be here before we know it.
Mm-hmm. I know.
Time is flying by quickly this year.
It is. This year especially. I feel like I say that every year. Don't we all always say that? But
yep. The older you get, the faster time flies, it seems.
I think there's something actually to that, right?
Well, it's because when you're young and you have so few of years that you've lived, each year is a significant percentage of your life so far.
I guess that makes sense.
The older you get, a year is like nothing.
And when you're in elementary school or just grade school in general, remember how long it feels till winter break and counting down. I would have a countdown in my planner of when Christmas was coming, and just everything seemed to go so slow in the halls of school, walls of school.
For real.
And now we're like, can we go back to that, please?
I know.
Can I have a day that actually feels slow?
I know. Yeah. I feel like once you have kids too, because I can't believe our daughter's about to be 3. What the hell happened? That's insane.
And I'm about to be 33.
Yeah. Yep. You're exactly 30 years older than her. It's crazy.
What's also crazy is this case we're covering today.
Yeah, it really is. This one pisses me off, you guys, so much.
This is the disappearance and murder of Katelyn Markham.
And I was honestly shocked that I had never heard of this one before.
Yeah, because this just came to a conclusion fairly recently, within the last couple of years.
Yeah.
Because this has been an ongoing case for over a decade.
Ugh.
And it's, I think we just need to get into it. It's unbelievable.
We have a lot to go over and a lot to talk about, a lot of thoughts. So let's start by telling you more about Katelyn, because she seemed to be a fantastic human being. So she was born on August 16th, 1989, and raised mainly in the suburb of Fairfield, Ohio, which is just 25 miles north of Cincinnati in Butler County. And Katelyn's father, Dave, and his first wife had been trying to have a child for several years, but were unsuccessful with every attempt. And eventually they learned of a couple who had recently gotten pregnant, but were planning to put the baby up for adoption. So Dave and his first wife jumped at the opportunity, of course, and he was able to hold Katelyn just 20 minutes after she was born. And from a very early age, Dave saw Katelyn's ability with her artistic talent, just really, really skilled. And he said that, while most other little kids were just doodling shapes and lines, or you'd ask them to draw a smiley face, it was just the standard, 2 dots and a smile. But Katelyn would draw eyelashes and all the extra facial details, and would use beautiful colors, and just took her artwork seriously from a young age. And when she was 6 years old, her parents had another daughter named Allie, and we're not sure if she was adopted as well, but Katelyn immediately just fell in love with her little sister. And it was during this time that Katelyn really came into her own. And Allie noticed how when Katelyn struggled with drawing eyes, she would really fixate on drawing them for days at a time until she could do it perfectly. And according to Dave, she could turn any situation funny. He said that Katelyn was bubbly, bold, and just did what she wanted. And she began wearing bold eye makeup that was different on each eye, and was known for wearing outfits with various colors and patterns, just very eclectic, I guess is the word. She was just very, expressed herself uniquely and really stood out. And many people believe that she was a butterfly coming out of her shell. But unfortunately, Dave and his first wife did separate when Katelyn was still in high school, and he really took on most of the responsibilities of raising his 2 daughters. But he was still a doting father who encouraged not only Katelyn's artistic capabilities, but also her growing social circle. Now, as of the 2020 census, nearly 30% of Fairfield's population was under 18, and the area was very family-friendly, with crime rates 26% lower than the national average. Plus, there were tons of community events, including the annual Sacred Heart Festival, which was a fair held just a few blocks away from the townhome that Katelyn lived in with Allie and her father. And according to Allie, at the fair, little kids play games, teens just stand there, and the adults drink. So, sounds like a good time. And for most of Katelyn's high school years, she made a tight-knit group of friends. She told Dave that she had plans to pursue her artistic career after high school, and according to him, she had no limit. According to Katelyn's high school art teacher, Dave Geiser, Katelyn was willing to take creative risks with her art, and he encouraged her to major in fine arts once she reached college. But it wasn't just her artistic sensibilities that flourished at this time. Around her junior year of high school, she began dating a young man named John Carter. Now, John was a year older than Katelyn, but to the people around them and, in their friend group, they were always laughing and smiling together. And according to their friend Amber Martin, it was true, quote, puppy love. So after Katelyn graduated from high school, she began pursuing her Bachelor of Fine Arts degree at the Art Institute of Cincinnati. And she went to school. She also worked for the school, and she had a part-time job at David's Bridal, which if you didn't know is just a chain bridal store. And she did that in order to support herself. And Katelyn was a very driven person. Meanwhile, John was, pretty laid back. He lived with his mother about 4 minutes from Katelyn's family townhome, and he was a delivery driver for Papa John's and also took glass blowing classes on the side. But they grew close due to their similar sense of humor and their sort of artistic personalities. And at this point, they really expected to be together forever. And according to their close friends, their bond was so strong at this point that people had even kind of become envious of their relationship. And 5 years into their relationship, John proposed, and Katelyn, of course, said yes. And they planned to move to Colorado after Katelyn graduated art school. And in August of 2011, she was just weeks away from that.
By this point, Dave and Allie had moved out of the family townhome and were living with his girlfriend. Katelyn stayed and lived alone in the house with their dog Murphy and had John over most nights since he was only a short walk away. By August, Katelyn was busy all the time between work and finishing up her final project for school. And on top of that, she and John were still planning on moving to Colorado after she graduated. The stress of everything was getting to her, and she needed a welcome break. Well, luckily, the Sacred Heart Festival was in town, and Katelyn had gone on August 12th with John and some other friends. However, these friends noted that tensions were high between John and Katelyn, which was pretty unusual considering how they often appeared outwardly loving towards one another. According to their friends, they had gotten into a fight over money after John had purchased 100 raffle tickets, which I assume those raffle tickets at least costed $1.
Right. So
maybe even a little bit more.
At least $100 probably.
So if money's tight, $100 is a lot of money.
Yeah, they were trying to save money.
Well, they want to move to Colorado, so that's going to be a big cost to do that. So definitely wasn't happy about that. But to friends, it seemed like a breakup conversation, and Katelyn ended up leaving the festival early. The next day, August 13th, John got off his delivery shift early and planned to meet his childhood friend, Brad Von Bargen, at Katelyn's house at around 9:30 p.m. that night. Brad said that Katelyn seemed very closed off and distant when he entered, and not her normal, bubbly, happy, positive self. She barely greeted him and sat in the same spot on the couch the entire time that they were hanging out. Still, Brad and John watched a movie and smoked some weed for the next hour. Then Brad ended up leaving, stopping at his house before hanging out with another friend. John said he stayed for a few more hours and planned to go to a small gathering later in the evening, and Katelyn wasn't going to join him because she had to work the next morning. But according to John, she got, quote, huffy that he was leaving her. John left Katelyn's house around 11:30, and on his way out, he told her in a sarcastic tone, "I love you, sorry," which according to him made her laugh. Then according to John's story, he then went to the gathering and then returned to his mother's house around 2 a.m., where he watched the show White Collar on his laptop until 4 a.m. Then he texted Katelyn, "Good morning," right before he fell asleep. John woke up around 4 p.m. the next day, August 14th, and headed to work. However, he was growing concerned because Katelyn had never responded to that good morning text he had sent earlier that morning. In the middle of his shift, John asked his boss if he could go check on Katelyn. She said that he could, and on the way to her house, he called her father Dave at around 7:30. According to Dave, John called and just said, "Katelyn's missing." Dave tried to contact Katelyn and all of her friends, but nobody had seen her since the prior day. And he knew something was wrong when he called David's bridal and learned that Katelyn hadn't shown up for her shift, which is something that Katelyn would have never done, would never just no call, no show. So he decided to rush over to the condo at around 8 p.m. And just then, John placed this 911 call. Let's take a listen.
Fiancé is missing. I can't.
We're going to play now that 911 call.
My fiancé is missing. I can't find her anywhere.
Where was she at midnight last night when you left?
She was at her house. She was going to bed. She wasn't going out to do anything, so she would have been in her bed. And when I've been with her for 6 years, she's not deceiving. She doesn't.
Okay, and you guys didn't have an argument or anything?
Not at all.
When Dave arrived at Katelyn's townhome, he was met by John and Fairfield police officers, including responding officer Sandy Spears. John mentioned on the call that the only thing missing was Katelyn's phone. However, when Dave opened her bedroom door, he saw that Murphy had been locked inside, her dog, and had gone to the bathroom on the floor at least 2 times. So at this point, Dave was like, this is very strange. Why on earth is Murphy locked in her room? And it seems like based on the fact that the dog went to the bathroom several times, that it had been in there for a while. So this is all very, very strange and definitely out of character for Katelyn.
Now, Katelyn's apartment was pretty clean. The only thing that was odd in the living room was that the coffee table had been pushed up close to the couch. And in her bedroom, more was out of place, but not all that unusual. Her art supplies and hats had been knocked over, but no additional signs of a struggle were in her bedroom. Even her purse, which contained her ID and $200 of cash, was left untouched. However, Dave just knew something was off because Katelyn would never leave Murphy locked inside of her room for so long, completely unattended. It's just not in her character. And while many of the investigators focused on Katelyn's townhome and her belongings, Responding officer Sandy Spears began speaking with Katelyn's various friends who showed up at the house. And one of them, John Palmerton, immediately stuck out to her as suspicious, but she couldn't exactly put her finger on why. So John Palmerton and John Carter had been close friends since they were 7 years old, and John P. lived very close to both Katelyn and John C.'s mother. But again, she's unsure of exactly why she's suspicious of Palmerton, but she called in her concerns before she and other responding officers escorted them to the police station to take statements. And at this point, Fairfield detectives took over the case, and they're unsure of whether a crime had been committed, so they attempted to track Katelyn's phone, as it was the only thing missing from her townhome. And they learned that Katelyn's phone was turned off or inactive since midnight on August 14th, around 30 minutes after John had left to go to his small gathering. So at the station, Dave, her father, was brought into an interview room and asked if Katelyn had been, feeling stressed or overwhelmed lately because they had that upcoming move to Colorado, lots going on with work and graduating from art school. So she just had a lot on her plate. And at this point, Dave felt like investigators weren't, quote, worried at all and seemed to think that Katelyn had just become too stressed out and decided that she needed a break, which, of course, we see this all the time. That's definitely their go-to play. But Dave really never considered this a possibility. Katelyn had never left home without telling anyone and was very close with her father and her sister Allie and her friends as well. And he felt like someone would have heard something if she was planning on randomly leaving or was that, stressed out and overwhelmed. Plus, if she ever did leave her townhome unexpectedly, she would have normally left a sticky note explaining where she was. And according to Dave, from very early on, he felt like something happened. Something bad happened.
One of the hardest things to keep track of these days is your subscriptions, because Lord knows how many subscriptions you have right now. I bet you can't even name all of the subscriptions you have accurately because they can be sneaky. I mean, if you use your phone these days, almost every app you use requires a subscription if you want to use all of its features. Plus, you've got all the streaming services. You want to watch your favorite show over on Max. Then you want to watch a show over on Discovery. Then you want to watch a show over on Prime. I mean, it's just endless. And so it can be very difficult to keep track of which subscriptions you're paying for, which one you're still using. Plus, give me just a pain to track your finances altogether. I mean, I know for me personally, with all the different accounts and different credit cards and business and all these things to keep track of, I need to make it as simple as possible. And that's why Rocket Money has been a game changer for me personally. Rocket Money is a personal finance app that helps you find and cancel those unwanted subscriptions. Plus, it monitors your spending and it helps lower your bills so you can grow your savings. Rocket Money truly is the best app to help get your financial situation under control and monitor it. And honestly, it's an app you'll end up going on almost every single day. I know for me, it's like first thing in the morning in the bathroom, popping open the Rocket Money app. And what's great is it'll tell me, oh, you've got utilities coming up. You've got things coming out of your account, ACH transactions. It just helps you give you that aerial view of your finances down to all of the nitty gritty little details. Absolutely love it. Plus, they'll help you cancel those unwanted subscriptions. They'll help you even lower your bills. It'll actually scan through your bills and let you know which utilities that they could possibly negotiate a lower rate for you, which is great. And with the premium version of it, which is only a couple bucks a month, they'll give you access to credit monitoring, which is great. They'll also give you a net worth tracker amongst a bunch of other features, which are all really useful. Truly, if you're looking for a one-stop shop for all of your personal finance management, Rocket Money has got you covered. So cancel those pesky unwanted subscriptions and reach your financial goals faster with Rocket Money. Just go to rocketmoney.com/milehigher today. That's rocketmoney.com/milehigher. That's rocketmoney.com/milehigher. Immediately after giving a statement, Dave and others from around the community began scouring the neighborhood for Katelyn, trying to see if they could find any sign of her. However, Dave realized early on that he could not participate in the search efforts himself, as his mind was in too many places. He said this, "I might have stepped on her phone and wouldn't have noticed." Honestly, makes a lot of sense. Just where your mind would be at as a dad looking for your daughter. You have no idea what happened to her. I mean, it'd be very difficult too, because to do effective searching, you've got to really be paying attention and looking across the ground in your, the different grids and things like that, depending on the type of searching you're doing. It's I mean, you got to be focused, right?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And I think, you see this in cases sometimes where people don't participate in the searches, and it's also like a big red flag. But also, I can't imagine as a parent I'd just be like beside myself and definitely wouldn't be useful in a search like that.
Yeah, so it's totally understandable. While detectives continued gathering statements, Officer Spears followed up with a neighbor in the same neighborhood as Katelyn, who reported seeing some suspicious people in the area the night that she disappeared. She said that she had seen people with tattoos and an older car parked outside that she thought didn't fit the area. With the Sacred Heart Festival only a few blocks away, investigators were concerned that maybe a transient had come through without any connections to the area that may have done something to Katelyn. However, what was interesting is that Katelyn's front door did not show any signs of forced entry, meaning she willingly opened it for either a stranger or someone she knew. And according to her father, Katelyn was a smart girl who wouldn't have opened the door for a stranger. Meanwhile, while volunteers were searching and detectives were continuing to gather more information, neighbors of Katelyn wrote to the local news reporter Karen Johnson, who immediately felt Katelyn's disappearance was different from others she had covered in the past. So she started covering it on the news, and as she started doing that, there was an outpouring of support from her friends, family, neighbors, and even strangers. And soon hundreds of people were helping out in the searches for Katelyn across Fairfield. Some were even bringing their ATVs out to help cover more ground. And 2 days after Katelyn disappeared on August 16th, 2011, she turned 22. And there was a massive gathering in town with everyone coming out to support Katelyn's family and her worried fiancé, John Carter. We have a clip from that, which we'll show you now.
This is what Carter told WCPO 9 News then.
I'm terrified. I'm absolutely terrified. I just want to find Katelyn and celebrate her birthday with her and go to Red Lobster like she was planning. I keep believing that if she is somewhere in the worst case scenario, that she fights her way out. I keep wanting to believe that because she's strong. I know she's strong.
Clearly concerned.
Yeah, that'd be really, really tough. Your mind would go all over the place, right?
Especially when he says the line, it was her birthday, we're supposed to go to Red Lobster.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that moment, he's thinking about what could have been, what they should have been doing that day, as opposed to now they're searching for her.
Yep.
And he's starting to think the worst has possibly happened. At this point, John had made several media appearances and advocated for her case every chance he could. He also spoke with police numerous times, as he was the last person to see Katelyn alive. So, of course, the police would be very interested in John. John told Fairfield detectives the same timeline we have just talked about earlier, about August 13th to the 14th. John came over, their friend Brad came later, and then John left Katelyn's house around 11:30. Curiously, he did not reveal the fact that they had gotten into an argument the day before at the Sacred Heart Festival. He said they had gotten into an argument about 2 weeks before, but couldn't remember what it was about.
And John truly insisted to investigators that he had no involvement. He was very forthcoming with everything. I mean, he allowed them to look through his phone and his computer records from the night Katelyn went missing. And they also did an impromptu search of his mother's house. But that was really just to collect his electronic devices, and nothing else was found. And so, trying to confirm John's alibi, detectives reached out to his friends, who said that he was at that small gathering from around midnight to 1:45 a.m. And then his computer records confirmed that he had streamed episodes of the show White Collar from 2 a.m. to 4 a.m. before he visited some pornography websites. And then the activity stopped. So at this point, John had all but been cleared by Fairfield authorities. And just as the search was ramping up, Texas EquiSearch, who we actually had the privilege of processing a grant for through Higher Hope. They're excellent. We love Texas EquiSearch. I know you've covered quite a few
cases. Yeah, well, we did
cases.
the Texas Killing Fields on, which is the founder of Texas EquiSearch is the story of his own daughter who went missing, which is how he even started the foundation. And so we invited them to reach out. They did. And I believe we helped fund some new drones for them.
Yes. Yeah, we
some
did.
Thermal drones, which is really awesome to help with searching. And they work in all sorts of different cases conditions across the entire country.
Yeah.
Truly an awesome org.
Yeah, they are. Check them out, you guys. But yeah, they joined into the effort, and John was seen at nearly every event. He was very involved. even once being embraced by Dave during a vigil for Katelyn. And with John basically in the clear, police asked him if he knew anyone who could be involved. So he mentioned a guy named Ryan Ball who went to school with Katelyn. And this guy is a creep. And he really had a reputation for being a, quote, very creepy kid who liked to freak women out. And according to John, he had made several advances on Katelyn in the years since graduation, often reaching out to her over Facebook and asking her to hang out or get her number or whatever. And John said that Ryan knew that she was in a relationship and she never once indicated that these advances were welcomed. But at this point, they realized that Ryan was a registered sex offender and he had solicited sex from a minor and was actually in jail after he violated his parole a week after Katelyn went missing. So it wasn't hard for investigators to track him down, bring him into the station, and ask him if he had any involvement in Katelyn's disappearance. However, Ryan denied any involvement and even said, "It's pissing me off that people were pointing the finger at him for Katelyn's disappearance." He claimed that the last time he saw Katelyn was at high school graduation, and he had little contact with her since then. Investigators actually did confirm this by going through his Facebook messages before they gave him a voice stress analysis, which he passed. But detectives in the early part of the investigation had basically no evidence to go off of. And when the story started going national, people unassociated with the case and began pointing the finger at John. However, those close to John and Katelyn felt like it was unfair that people were just assuming that he had done something to her. Plus, at this point, he did not shy away from the cameras at all, and he wanted to keep Katelyn's name in the news. He was very active. And with little happening in the case, of course, the news crews began heading home, and the once massive search teams became smaller and smaller over time. And even Katelyn's younger sister, Allie, said it felt weird returning to school that semester, walking the halls, knowing that everyone there knew what was happening. And she said, quote, "My whole life was on TV. Can't imagine what that was like for her." Plus, rumors began to spread that John had started dating Katelyn's close friend Amber, which was very hurtful. And Amber did spend a lot of time with John in those early days, but it was not romantic. She said it was, quote, "very, very hurtful." She just wanted to be there for Katelyn and thought that would mean being there for John. But detectives had not given up. They decided to bring in John and his friend Brad into the station once again on September 19th, 2011. But this time, they were going to administer a voice stress analysis to them as well.
Interestingly, since John was cleared, he had started wondering if Brad had any involvement in Katelyn's disappearance. And apparently, Brad had a, quote, strange response when John asked him to speak to an early private investigator. And John wondered aloud to police, "Oh my God, it actually could be him." However, both Brad and John failed their voice stress analysis. Both chalked it up to just being nervous, but because their alibis checked out otherwise, both were released and cleared of the investigation. Then for nearly 2 years, basically nothing happened. In June of 2012, 26-year-old Gurpreet Kang was arrested after he was accused of sexually assaulting a Miami University student. He had previously lived across the street from Katelyn, but after Fairfield police questioned him, Gurpreet was also ruled out as a suspect. In the following time, more and more people began suggesting that John had to be responsible. He said in 2021, quote, "People are going to say what they're going to say. You can't stop them." And then finally, over 2 years after Katelyn went missing, there was a discovery. On April 10th, 2013, Indiana State Police received a call from Andy Hicks, a man who was searching for scrap metal along a rural winding road in Cedar Grove. Andy had seen an impromptu dump site off of the side of the road, and that's where he discovered skeletal remains mixed in with the garbage. Andy said that the remains weren't buried, but simply dumped with trash piled on top. The skull, however, was wrapped in a plastic bag. And when Indiana State Police arrived at the scene, they realized that a black landscaper's tarp had covered the remains. However, there was nothing there to determine where it had originated from. However, when police examined the skull, they immediately saw that one of the teeth was crooked, very similar to how Katelyn's teeth were. A few days later, dental records confirmed that the remains in fact belonged to Katelyn Markham.
It's crazy that they remembered that right away, that she had that crooked tooth and noticed that just by looking at the skull.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good thing that they did.
Mm-hmm.
And there's, at this time, there's only so many missing people, right?
Right. Well, they actually looked it up, one of them on their phones, and immediately... Was that a police officer? That was just a...
Yeah, it was one of the Indiana state detectives. It was like when they were just like literally looking up missing people in the area.
And she was the first one to come up.
Right. And on top of that, like her case was huge for right in the beginning, and her face was everywhere. And so, you know, that crooked tooth was pretty indicative, you know?
Yeah. Yep. Oh, God.
This is how Dave learned about this new discovery. So he just, you know, one day sees two police officers showing up at his door. I think there was a preacher with them as well.
Yeah, yep.
And he knew right away what they were about to tell him. Dave said he didn't handle it very well because, quote, they treated her like garbage.
Yeah, I mean, they did.
I mean,
Tossed her on the side of the road like that.
Yeah.
It's
just covered in garbage with the tarp. Can't even imagine.
Infuriating, dude. It feels so bad for Dave.
John, on the other hand, once the remains were found, only had this to say publicly to the media. This is what this looks like text statement says. I was only on the news before because I wanted to find Katelyn. Now that is done, I have no interest in putting myself on camera. I just want to mourn my loss and try to put my life back together. Could understand that, you know, maybe you were on the news because you were wanting to find her, and now that you know the result.
Now you want the privacy. Yeah, I guess so.
You don't want to be out publicly about it anymore.
Well, on the second anniversary of Katelyn's disappearance, her death was, in fact, ruled a homicide, though nothing in particular was listed as her cause of death. And in August of 2013, Katelyn's family was finally able to give her a proper funeral. And we have a clip.
We would have had our kiss. We would have had our marriage.
Here's John if you're listening.
Yeah. We would have our kid. And we would have our life. And we would grow old together.
An emotional John Carter, Markham's fiancé, spoke in front of the crowd, reminiscing in the times he shared with the love of his life. Carter's cousin says she considers herself lucky to have called Katelyn family.
Whenever I think of her, I just think of this smile and this artwork, and she was just a colorful human being. She meant well to everybody. Everybody was a friend.
People from around the tri-state gave up hours upon hours of time searching for Markham when she went missing. While Diane Smith never met Markham, she feels like she's known her forever.
Just by going through all of her pictures and her art, and you just feel like you know her. You know, the type of person that she was.
Especially for Dave Rader, who headed up the search for Markham. While it's a bittersweet day for him, he says there's more that needs to be done before Markham's family can truly have closure.
And I do believe that one day this will, the final chapter, you might say. I mean, we're 2/3 of the way there. All we need to do now is find the person that did this to her, and then that will be the closure that the family needs.
I think it's important to note that the family encouraged people showing up for that funeral to wear bright colors. I mean, that's why you saw everyone wearing, you know, tie-dye, all sorts of stuff, because, you know, they wanted it to reflect Katelyn's personality.
Yeah, I think that's a really beautiful way to honor her. And it seemed like everyone that I've heard speak about her just has kind of the same thing to say. She clearly just made such an impact on people and was so kind to everyone and bubbly and fun. And you know, there's people like in my own life that come to mind that remind me of Katelyn, and they're just some of the brightest people I know, you know, the most colorful people in more ways than one. But now the investigation had changed from a missing person to a homicide, and a whole new agency began investigating once Indiana State Police got involved. And again, while there was no clear evidence of Katelyn's cause of death, there were marks on her wrist that indicated that she might have been cut there, and perhaps that happened after she died. In addition to that, investigators were able to determine that she had been killed and possibly stored in another location before she was transported to the Rule Road in Indiana. And the bag over her head indicated that whoever transported her had known who she was and didn't want to see her face during the half-hour drive to the dump site. And the first person involved in the case that the Indiana State Police questioned actually was her father, David Markham. They wanted to clear him since Fairfield had never suspected him of her murder. And while Dave did think the whole thing seemed, quote, absurd at the time. He was happy that they seemed to be rattling cages. And, he explained to them that he was with his girlfriend the night of Katelyn's disappearance, and he passed a polygraph test and was completely cleared of any suspicion. But I can't imagine how that would feel. The footage of him going through all of that is very heartbreaking. But obviously, it made sense to him why they had to do it. But it would be...
Well, he was like, at least I know they're doing their job.
Yeah. And he told them, too, I've always wondered if you guys ever suspected me, because no one had ever questioned him like that before.
Which makes you wonder, are they really questioning everybody else thoroughly?
That's what he was wondering. Mm-hmm. But what about John? He kept to the same story that he had told Fairfield police in 2011, explicitly telling investigators that he wanted the person responsible to rot in jail. And I would, too. But because Fairfield had cleared John earlier and Indiana had no new information, he was again cleared in the investigation. Then on April 10th, 2014, two of Katelyn's closest friends visited the dump site in Cedar Grove to, go out there and pay their respects. And it's important to know also John never made that trip out there, which is kind of odd. However, they were horrified to discover that the remnants of her remains were still left behind from the Indiana State Police investigation, which is mind-blowing. I don't know how. That is just unbelievable. Disgusting, so offensive, so unprofessional, and I don't even know. That's, wow. Imagine seeing that as her friends.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know what the reason behind that is. It was just they ran out of time,
lazy,
just sloppy. They didn't dig it out properly.
That is so disturbing. Really feel for her friends.
When I saw this next sponsor come across, I was actually pretty stoked, because this is a service and a platform I've used extensively over the years, especially when the business was first getting started. And that platform is called Upwork. Upwork is a hiring platform designed for the modern playbook, where you can find, hire, and pay expert freelancers who can deliver results from day one. Perfect for businesses on tight budgets, fast timelines, and zero room for error. We love Upwork. We even use it from time to time to fill in for people when they're out of town. Sometimes we don't have the backup, and we'll go find a freelancer, whether it's for graphic design, writing, research, whatever it may be. And there's tons of great freelancers on there. Some of our own employees were Upwork freelancers at one point, and they've had nothing but good things to say about it. I have had nothing but good experiences on it. It's really easy to set up a project on there. And then basically you can either search through people they recommend that you can invite to apply to your job, or you can just open it up and see who applies and kind of go with the best person for the job. It really is such a great platform, and it has all sorts of different specialties and industries, from IT to web dev, AI, design, admin support, marketing, you name it, they've got it. And it's just an easy place to get access to a global marketplace as well. You can narrow it down to the country you want, but you can also open up to the entire globe if it doesn't really matter. And Upwork costs way less than if you're needing, wanting to hire somebody full time and go through a staffing agency or something like that. You'll save a lot of money by using Upwork. That's really the big perk. You don't have to, you're using a freelancer, and then also Upwork is taking care of all of the contracting and all that kind of stuff. So it's really seamless. It's really easy. And you can literally post a job today and then hire tomorrow with Upwork. So visit Upwork.com right now and post your job for free. That's Upwork.com to post your job for free and connect with top talent ready to help your business grow. That's UPWORK.com. Upwork.com. As you can imagine, once Dave found out that there was still, remains of his daughter out there, he went back out to the site along with Texas EquiSearch to rake the dirt for any additional remains. And Dave even said, quote, "If you want to get the job done, you've got to do it yourself." And man, is that a true statement when it comes to family members' experiences with their loved ones' cases. It just seems like time after time after time, if you're not out there doing stuff yourself, investigating, searching, things are getting missed constantly.
I believe he mentioned it or maybe the journalist mentioned it to him in one of the interviews, being like, you shouldn't have to do it yourself. Like, even though, yes, what you did was really amazing. It's like there are people whose job is to do this.
They're paid professionals for a reason, and still seems like things slip through the cracks far too often.
Yep. I see it all the time.
But after this, Dave went to the Fairfield police chief once again and urged them to change out the team working on Katelyn's investigation. He was super unhappy with their work. I mean, obviously, they haven't probably been as thorough as they should have been. They're not looking, as hard as they should have been. And he was just really hadn't heard from them. So he was worried that the investigation was just flat out over or just on the back burner and not even being pursued anymore. And so he was luckily able to convince the police chief to put a new team on it. But at that point as well, an unnamed wealthy benefactor raised the reward for information in Katelyn's case to $25,000 and hired a Florida-based private investigator, J. Ryan Green, to help investigate the case, which is amazing that just somebody
cool.
from the public decided to step in and help this dad out and just try to get some movement in the case. So the PI, Mr. Green, first went to the last two people who saw Katelyn. That was Brad and John. Brad agreed to do an unrecorded interview with Green in which he stated what kind of car he drove. Green found that vehicle, a blue-green Saturn, after he met with the acquaintance Brad had sold it to, which was kind of interesting that this dude had this vehicle right around the time she vanished, and then he quickly sold it thereafter.
Yeah.
So what's up with that?
Yeah, we see that a lot too.
So smart for this PI to go out and track it down and then buy the car back.
I know.
So that they can do forensic analysis on it. Because in the trunk, Green noticed dark stains on the carpet and feared that this could possibly be from blood. However, before Green could test the stains, he had to follow up with John Carter. Dave told Green he never liked John and said that he was, quote, sloppy and lazy. However, in the years since, Dave started to realize how strange that initial phone call with John was on the day that Katelyn disappeared. Dave said, quote, how do you know she is missing? What if she was sitting at my kitchen table with me?
Because if you remember, he called him very frantically, being like, Katelyn's missing, Katelyn's missing. And of course, at the time, you probably would hear something like that as a parent and just immediately go to, holy shit, what do I need to do? She's missing. But the more you sit on that and think, like, how did you know that?
And on top of that, Katelyn's friends started reflecting on John's past media appearances and said that they felt, quote, like they were rehearsed. And one of Katelyn's friends even called him and accused him of her death. And John scoffed at it and said, I didn't do anything. More than that, Green started looking at the country road where Katelyn's remains were found. And not only was it desolate, but you'd have to obviously be familiar with this area. This is out on some like county roads. Mm-hmm. This isn't just a place a transient would know to go to dump someone's remains.
Pretty random.
What's even weirder is that the place where her body was dumped was actually on the way to John's father's property in Indiana, just a few miles away. But it was basically on route to where John's father's property was, which is pretty interesting.
Pretty strange coincidence there, right?
Big coincidence.
So John met with Green 4 times in 2014. And this is when he first revealed that Katelyn may have been mad at him before he went to the gathering the night that she disappeared. It's interesting that he suddenly remembers this information or kept it all this time. But by the 4th meeting, John became more aggressive with Green. When he asked John why the remains were so close to his father's property, John said, proximity is not evidence, and added that 5 years later, they're still coming for me like I have the answer. I don't. So on February 27th, 2014, John took a polygraph test, and once again, he failed it. Now, unfortunately, the stain in Brad's old car didn't have enough DNA to actually be extracted, and they couldn't even determine if it was actually blood. And at the beginning of 2015, the benefactor's money, unfortunately, had run out, and Green turned in his findings to the Fairfield police. However, they did not act on any of the new information. And Dave said, when there's results like this handed in your lap and nothing happens, it's frustrating and it makes me angry. It makes me very angry. I do not trust or believe that the direction the Fairfield Police Department took from the very beginning and continues to cling to is going to solve Katelyn's murder. I am pleading with Sheriff Jones that the chief law enforcement officer take over this case. However, in 2016, the Butler County Sheriff's Office did take over the case, and they examined John's 911 call, and Detective Joe Nerlinger, said, "You can hear it in his voice. This is a lie." And maybe we should go back and listen to it one more time.
My fiance is missing. I can't find her anywhere.
Where was she at midnight last night when you left?
She was at her house. She was going to bed. She wasn't going out to do anything, so she would have been in her bed. And I mean, I've been with her for 6 years. She's not deceiving, she doesn't.
Okay, and you guys didn't have an argument or anything?
Not at all.
Interesting now looking back at that with all this suspicion around John, how he says, we didn't have an argument, not at all. But we know that their friends said that they did at the fair. What's it called? The
Sacred
Heart Festival over the 100 raffle tickets or whatever. So we know that they had this argument, and he straight up is lying right there. So interesting. So they also looked back at his cell phone records, and not only did his phone become inactive only a few minutes before Katelyn's did, but many of the texts that he had sent her that evening had been deleted. And he had never sent that good morning text like he initially claimed. And the Butler County Sheriff's Office announced that they had a new person of interest in the case, but did not have enough evidence to make an arrest. And we now know that that person was, in fact, John Carter.
For nearly 5 years, little movement was made in Katelyn's case. Dave and Allie continued to hold events to spread awareness and planted monarch butterfly trees in her honor. John, on the other hand, had married a new woman, had a child, and became an instructor at the glassblowing facility where he had previously taken classes. So he got right to moving on there.
Mm-hmm. Whole new life.
And it seemed almost like Katelyn's case had gone completely cold. And that was until 2018 when a new case took hold in Butler County. In July of 2018, 23-year-old Ellie Wyke went missing, and her remains were found a month later in a field near the home of her ex-boyfriend, Michael Strauss. Michael was arrested for her murder, and he was found guilty and sentenced in 2019 to 17 years to life. However, many online saw similarities between Ellie and Katelyn's cases. For one, they looked very similar. Two, they were around the same age and were from the same county. More than that, a photo was discovered that showed Michael and John hanging out at a party. The photo was taken after Katelyn's disappearance, but it seemed to corroborate a tip that the two men hung out in the same crowd. In addition, an unsubstantiated tip from one of Michael's ex-cellmates claimed that he had killed before and gotten away with it. After learning all these connections, Paul Newton, lead investigator for the Butler County Prosecutor's Office, asked Prosecutor Michael Moser if he could look into the connection. And for 3 years, Paul worked the case. He said, quote, "Once I get challenged, I don't stop until it's resolved." And he finally brought Michael in for questioning once he felt like the connection was strong enough. However, he learned that he and John had only met at that party and claimed that he was at a party on the opposite end of the county the night Katelyn disappeared. Paul was able to locate a photo that proved that Michael was at that party until at least 4 a.m. and cleared him of suspicion in Katelyn's death. However, Paul was now under the impression that Katelyn's case could be solved. So he went through Fairfield's material on her case and decided to question Brad next. Brad gave the same story as he did in 2011 and now over 10 years later, and agreed to take a polygraph test. However, unlike the earlier voice stress test, Brad passed this one. He simply told Paul, quote, "I still miss my friend," and Paul cleared him of suspicion right then and there. This episode is sponsored by Function Health because it's the only health platform that gives you access to the kind of data most people never see and the insights to actually take action. This is a really, really cool service, and actually, before they came and sponsored the show, I actually came across some of their ads on Instagram and started looking into it and nearly went and just purchased it outright. But I kind of had a feeling that we might end up getting sponsored by them. So I kind of waited, but I'm very excited to actually try this. All three of us are going to try it. And basically it's a new platform. You go and you give, a bunch of blood, got to give a bunch of vials of blood, so that they can run these different tests. But you get access to over 160 biomarkers through these lab tests that you do. And what's really nice about it is when you sign up for it, you basically just schedule the labs, and they make it really, really easy to do this. And I love the fact that they do it this way. So it's just with your local lab providers. It could be like LabCorp, Lab Tests Now. There's a bunch of different ones out there depending on where you live. They schedule it through Function Health, and then you just show up. You give the blood that they need, and then they send it off, and then they start giving you these test results for over 160 biomarkers, from heart and hormones to toxins, inflammation, and stress. You can also access other scans as well, multi-region MRI and CT scans, which are all tracked in one secure place over time. Because the whole point of the Function Health is to kind of get a baseline for your health. There's actually medical professionals on staff who give you recommendations on what to do depending on what your results are. And then basically over time, annually, you go and give more blood, and then you can actually track your health over time as you age and see all these biomarkers change, which is really, really cool. Is you really get this 360 view of what's happening inside your body. And top health leaders like Dr. Mark Hyman, Dr. Andrew Huberman, and Dr. Jeremy London are all behind Function Health. Really cool service. Excited to try it out. We'll report back in a future read of some of our results and just our overall experience with it. But all three of us are going to be trying it. Janelle, Kendall, and I are going to be trying it. So we'll report back. But Function is offering 160 plus lab tests for $365 to anyone who signs up between July 7th and July 11th. To learn more and get started, visit www.functionhealth.com/milehigher. And this is a great deal because these lab tests cost a lot more, even through your primary care physician. So this is a great deal. $365 for all of these 160 plus lab tests. Again, that's functionhealth.com/milehigher.
However, as Paul was going through all of the evidence, he felt like everything just kept circling back to John. And there were numerous issues that Fairfield had never followed up on, which is insanely frustrating. For one, there were the deleted texts that John said were an accident after he tried to make room for all the new texts that he received after Katelyn went missing. Sure did. But Fairfield also noticed scratch marks on John's neck during their first interview. And that was just a day after Katelyn disappeared. And he first claimed that they were from shaving, but later said that he couldn't remember where he had gotten them from. And Paul noticed that they seemed too low on his neck to have actually come from shaving. So, bullshit. So Paul once again brought in John for questioning, and he told him straight up that he was on the fence with him and that he would have to take a polygraph for him to be cleared. And John agreed, saying, "I want people to stop looking at me weird at the store." On January 28th, 2021, John took his third polygraph test, and I bet you can guess the results. Yep, he failed again. And he specifically showed deception when he was asked if he had disposed of Katelyn's body on Big Cedar Road. Very interesting. And Paul told John, "It's been a long time since I've had someone do this poorly on a polygraph." And he explicitly said that he was coming after his ass. And so now Paul was fully convinced that John was responsible for Katelyn's death, and he just had to prove it. Paul began following up on leads from 2011 that didn't seem to be investigated by Fairfield police. And he soon learned that at the time of Katelyn's disappearance, their relationship was crumbling. And he learned that during a shift, a coworker at David's Bridal had asked Katelyn if she was going to get married in Colorado. And she responded, "I'm not sure we're getting married." So that tells you a whole lot if that's true. He also spoke with his friends who were with Katelyn and John the night that they were at the Sacred Heart Festival, who said it looked like they were going to break up, which explained why she was so distant with Brad the next day. He also learned that Katelyn had become very unattracted to John, which can't say I blame her on that one. She said she became disgusted by his porn habit and very uncomfortable with the things that he wanted to do intimately with her. Disgusting. And Paul also interviewed a bank worker who had helped John, Katelyn, and John's mother open a credit account for her only 3 weeks before she disappeared. And according to the bank manager, John's mom said, "I'll co-sign for the visa, but you've got to take my son to Colorado with you." To which the manager joked with Katelyn, "I guess you are stuck now." And according to the manager, Katelyn did not laugh or smile once throughout the entire meeting and appeared serious and somber. She seemed hesitant to open that account and ultimately never did. Plus, Paul found a statement from one of their friends that said if Katelyn were to break up with John, it would be catastrophic. And he also came across a statement from Katelyn's next-door neighbor who thought that she had heard a fight coming from the townhome the night that she disappeared, and they actually brought her into the station and interviewed her, and she sort of acted it out, that she stood up and said that it sounded like someone was saying, "Stop, stop." And then she heard like what sounded like someone hitting a wall. Plus, they also learned that John had quite the temper. He received this video of him yelling at his current wife while holding their baby. Check this out.
Taking care of our daughter while you go ahead and do whatever the you want.
John Carter, seen and heard screaming at his current wife.
Yeah, you pushed a load of my buttons. Thank you. I want you to stop acting like a every day.
This is one piece of evidence prosecutors collected during their investigation into Katelyn Markham's death. WLWT has obtained hundreds of investigative documents and more than a dozen videos, including interviews with friends, that prosecutors used to build their case against John Carter.
And that says a lot about a person, right? When they would yell at the mother of their child like that while their baby is in the room.
Just period.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's a despicable person.
Yeah.
But they're trying to get as much evidence because there's not a lot of, if any, physical evidence linking him to Katelyn's disappearance. So they've got to get everything they possibly can for a circumstantial case, which is always difficult.
And that's also thanks to the shitty work by the Fairfield Police Department. All the time that they wasted, it's been a long time since the investigation originally started. So they're in a tough spot.
But still, there was an issue with John's alibi. His friends at the gathering all said that he was there, and his computer proved that he had watched that show White Collar and pornography until 4 a.m. However, after Paul went through the computer records, he learned that the next day, John had searched for summaries of the episodes he supposedly watched in bed. Plus, the fact that his phone was inactive until 4 p.m. the next day, is it possible John just hit play on his computer and then went somewhere else?
I think it's obvious once you hear that he had looked up summaries.
Right.
Why else would he have done that?
How did this not stand out to investigators initially?
They let so much shit fall through. They just ruled him out as a suspect pretty much immediately.
It's shocking.
It's insane.
Then, once again poring over Fairfield's evidence, Paul discovered that 3 teenage boys had tried to make a statement to police in 2011 that they had seen John after he supposedly returned home at 2 a.m. Paul ended up tracking these boys down over a decade later, and they still gave him the same story they gave before. According to them, at 2 a.m. the night Katelyn disappeared, they were outside one of their homes across the street from John's mother's house when they saw 2 cars drive by without headlights. And because they thought they were possibly police, the boys hid in some bushes and then realized that one of the cars belonged to none other than John Carter. And the other was a blue Saturn, which was being driven by his friend John Palmerton, the same friend that responding officer Sandy Spears was suspicious of from the start.
It was really interesting seeing we can't play it because it's copyrighted, but the footage of the boys, which they were men by the time they were interviewed, talking about it because it clearly really was ingrained into their minds. They were very sure of what they saw even after all that time. And obviously they didn't know who the guys were, but they described John Palmerton as exactly what he looks like, the disheveled loser. I mean, they knew exact. I don't know. It's just crazy that they fucked this up so bad in the beginning. This could have been solved so quickly.
Yeah, it seems like literally all the pieces are there.
Yeah, they had it all
to put it together, and they just didn't for some reason because they were so convinced that John didn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, and John is convincing. I thought. I mean, even Amber, who spent a ton of time with him, she was like, I was mind blown. When it all came together, I started realizing this was John, and that's how I felt. I was like, God, am I an idiot? When I first started looking into this case, and I wanted to, find out the way that their family did over time. And I just was so fooled by John. He just came across me as so genuine. I'm sure a lot of people will disagree and think it seems obvious. And I don't know what's the word. I can be a little naive sometimes and want to see the best in people. And he seemed like he was truly so upset and so in love with her that I don't know, I just fell for it.
I just can't believe investigators fell for it.
I know, right? They
didn't even seemingly verify his alibi.
No.
At all, really. Because if you went and confiscated the electronics, you got all this information, you knew the search history, and you didn't put 2 and 2 together, and then also have these teenage boys saying, hey, we saw John, because they also saw John pull into his garage while Palmerton waited outside. And then a few moments later, John Carter pulled out again and drove towards Katelyn's townhome. And then Palmerton followed him, and they flipped on their headlights once they passed the end of the block. So they clearly were trying to not be seen by anybody, but luckily these boys are out there and they actually saw them. Paul decided to go interview Mr. Palmerton next, and he had never given an alibi before this interview. And at this point, it seemed like he was an accomplice. Paul said that Palmerton seemed very fidgety and evasive, and Paul told him, quote, "I don't think you could have done this, but would you help a buddy? I think you would." Palmerton claimed that the night Katelyn disappeared, he got off work at Applebee's, drove home, and then returned to hang out with coworkers until 4 a.m. However, his coworkers disputed this story and said he never returned after he clocked off. There you go. Now a story immediately starts to break down.
Mm-hmm.
Paul now had a theory for the events that transpired the night that Katelyn disappeared. He believed John Carter killed Katelyn around the time her phone went silent at 12:06, went to the gathering to establish an alibi, and called Palmerton to help move the body afterward. Then he went to his home, pressed play on White Collar, and left again with Palmerton to move Katelyn to a different location. And finally, the Butler County Prosecutor's Office executed a search warrant on John's mom's home. Inside, they not only found a landscaping tarp that matched the material that was discovered with Katelyn's remains, but also journals and writing that seemed to show John Carter had a guilty conscience. And here, let me read you one of his poems here. It says, "Deep down, I love her. You want to kill her, but I love her. She must die. I can't kill her. Yes, you can. No. Yes. How do you talk to me into all these things? I'm just that good. But you're bad. I know. How do I kill you? You can't. You're right. About what? Nothing." This is like an inner demon he's
That's what
talking
it
to.
seems
It's
like.
fucking wild.
It sounds like Gollum and Smeagol.
Yeah.
Straight up.
Totally, yeah.
In addition to this creepy poem, detectives also found writing above a door that said, quote, "I slit your wrist with a key to your heart."
Oh, God.
And even more writing that suggested he had buried a body in the backyard.
Why above your door?
I know.
Right? Isn't that the weirdest part of that? It doesn't make any sense. Just like and the mom never brought it up. Like,
yeah, hey, what the fuck is this, dude? Or anyone else that went through his house. I'm sure other people have been there.
While the search warrant was being served in February of 2023, John Palmerton was indicted on perjury charges stemming from his statements to Paul. He was the first arrest in Katelyn's case and was arrested at the same Applebee's where he had worked for over a decade. And I love that they went and got his ass while he was working at Applebee's.
At the Applebee's, yep. His coworkers.
Would you like
and
some
everything.
baby back ribs? You're under arrest. Just like gets tackled.
I believe he was like back in the kitchen when they did it. Yeah, and they brought him out.
He would be in the kitchen.
Yeah, I'm sure people that were dining at the Applebee's were like, "What the hell is this?"
Just your friendly neighborhood Applebee's.
Mm-hmm.
It's literally neighborhood
Serving
bar
up the
and
best
grill.
talent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But then on March 22nd, 2023, Paul Newton had the pleasure of arresting John Carter during one of his glass blowing classes.
Another public arrest. And
with
at
a
the
bunch
glass
of elderly
class.
ladies.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Participating in class.
Yeah.
And then he gets...
Yeah, that's what they said, actually. Josh isn't just making that up.
No.
There's a bunch of elderly ladies that were... his words were, they got quite a show. Okay, good news. Ian actually was able to get some of the footage just now of John, which I don't think I didn't see any footage of him being arrested in the class, but we have footage of him coming out and being placed in the car. So let's take a look at that, because it's just satisfying to see this loser finally coming, I was going to say to terms, but terms coming for him. Sorry, my brain. I think y'all fall to some degree. Here he is. King monster. Fuck you, John Carter.
Yeah, that's
There he is.
Forest Bar. You got nothing else on you?
It's crazy he doesn't look like he's grown up at all in all this time. Still looks like a 20-year-old boy.
It's just so bad that he got away with it for so long.
Oh, it's insane.
So you guys taking the Forest Bar? I'm not sure what we're doing with him.
Yeah, and see on the bottom right or bottom left.
Sorry.
Trying to seatbelt his ass in there. Imagine what was going through his mind.
Really appreciate it. Thank you.
I know, like, damn. This is fucking...
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. It's like, I really thought I got away with it.
Mhm. I do believe the guy in the black jacket right there is Paul Newton.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
He's like, thanks, guys.
He's a badass.
Yeah.
Yeah, imagine being at that glass.
That's got to be one of the most satisfying moments in any cop's career.
Totally. Yeah, especially in a case like this.
A case that's been worked on for over 10 years and you finally get enough evidence to arrest the guy.
You just got to bring someone that's actually intelligent in, like Paul.
It's just baffling how often this happens. I just don't get it.
It's horrible. And all
it's like
her family and friends had to suffer for what?
It's just like maybe one day they'll just put the evidence into AI and AI will make the connections.
I know we always talk about how dangerous AI is and
but I think
not wanting
AI
to take jobs,
could be
but if it's going to solve cases,
helpful in law enforcement.
Probably
in a lot
one
of ways.
day. I'm sure we'll just be seeing that.
Johnny Boy, well, things aren't looking good for him. He's arraigned on murder charges, but he was somehow able to post $1 million bond.
Yeah, how did he do that?
No, I do believe, I mean, his father did own multiple properties. So I do, it's not confirmed anywhere.
His pappy
but
helped him.
Yeah, his
probably.
dad seems a bit wealthy.
Probably, I guess.
Because they clearly tried to keep him in there, $1 million bond. That's not
They're like, he's
super
not going
easy
to post it, but he did. Wow. This episode is brought to you by one of our personal favorite brands, something that we pay for on a weekly basis that we love so, so very much. And it is called Hungry Root, if you haven't heard of it. Now, listen, guys, planning out your meals and trying to plan out healthy meals can be a lot of work. Just a lot of mental load, a lot of time. But planning your meals can actually really be simple and stress-free, and you can also eat healthy. I mean, just imagine if all of your meals for the week were set for you. All you have to do is open the fridge, get them out, and make them up. And imagine also if they were easy to make, like most of them 15 minutes or less. And what's cool about Hungry Root is you give them feedback every week about certain ingredients or the meal as a whole, what you thought of it, and it gets smarter as you go with every order. And with over 15,000 recipes to choose from each week, you may not believe that, I'm telling you. That's how many options you have. And like I said, many are ready in just 15 minutes or less. It's easy to find options that are going to fit your whole family's taste and nutrition goals. And we can really speak to that because even our 3-year-old likes Hungry Root, well, almost 3. And as you know, toddlers can be really, really picky. But Holly loves Hungry Root. She even calls it Hungry Toot. And whether you're gluten-free, dairy-free, high-protein, focused on gut health, or just about anything else, Hungry Root helps you to stay on track. After a quick quiz, their smart cart technology builds a weekly menu that fits your needs. It's like having a personal meal planner who just gets it. And if anything doesn't look good for you, you can change them. And we also love that Hungry Root helps you to cut down on food waste and keeps you from defaulting to expensive takeout when time is tight. You get great value with thoughtfully planned meals, and with my offer, every delivery includes a free item like a premium protein, veggie, or sweet treat. And why we especially love Hungry Root so much more than any other meal kit that we have tried is they hold their ingredients to such high standards. They avoid over 200 additives like high fructose corn syrup, preservatives, and artificial sweeteners. They use quality ingredients like hormone and antibiotic-free meat and seafood, organic produce, and non-GMO choices so that you can feel good about what you're eating. And I think that's definitely what we've been most impressed by is the quality of the meat and the seafood. It's so good. Some of our favorites recently have been the chicken tikka masala with green beans. Also, the feta tzatziki salmon with crispy potatoes was amazing. Also, the chile limon chicken Caesar salad is one of our faves. We bring it into the office all the time. Mexican street corn chicken rice bowl was bomb. Oh, also I have to mention their tzatziki shawarma chicken lavash wrap. I've become such a fan of lavash. Would have never known about lavash without Hungry Root. So take advantage of this exclusive offer for a limited time. You can get 40% off your first box, plus get a free item in every box for life. Just go to hungryroot.com/milehigher and use code milehigher. That's hungryroot.com/milehigher, code milehigher to get 40% off your first box and a free item of your choice for life. Once again, hungryroot.com/milehigher, code milehigher.
Other charges, including ones related to moving Katelyn's remains, had passed the statute of limitations, which is very unfortunate. And
Absurd,
something
really.
that, as we'll see, Dave has been working to try to change.
So in June of 2024, just weeks before his trial began, John Carter took a plea deal, and he pleaded guilty to involuntary manslaughter in the death of Katelyn Markham. And in July, he was given, this is going to blow your mind, piss you off, you guys, he was given the maximum penalty of just 36 months, which is like 3 years. 3 years exactly? Yep. And he never, to this day, has revealed how he killed her. Little bitch. And during his sentencing, Dave told the judge, let him feel the pain that many of us endured for the past 13 years. Speaking after the sentence was given, Dave said, it's not closure, but it's the start of something else to come. And I just got to say, Dave, amazing human. The fact that he's able to still hold himself with so much grace and composure, I don't think I'd be able to do it, even after getting that finding out about that sentence and being able to still say like, okay, it's the start of something else to come. Okay. I don't know. He's just amazing to me. He really is. And since then, Dave and his family have been pushing Ohio to pass Katelyn's Law, which raises the statute of limitations for lesser charges stemming from violent crimes. And as of now, its status as legislation is unknown. We're hoping for the best. Who knows, though? The perjury charge against John Palmerton was dropped, but he was later arrested for domestic violence against a family member in July of 2024. But we don't know. We assume, we all, I think, are on the same page. I think he was involved. To what degree? I don't know. So yeah, it's frustrating to see that he wasn't held accountable specifically in Katelyn's case. But currently, John Carter is expected to be released on July 4th, 2027. You guys, that's less than 2 years from now.
That's crazy.
I'm just like, what
Unbelievable.
the fuck?
And this happened because of how long this took.
Yep. They messed this up so bad. And while Dave may never know what truly happened to Katelyn that night, he says he sees her wherever he goes. Whenever a butterfly passes him, he says, there she goes. That's Katelyn. And of course, there are some theories as far as what happened to her. Personally, it just feels strange to even speculate. We know John did something, and I don't know.
There was a unsubstantiated claim made by an ex-cellmate of John's who said that John had told him that the gist of what happened was he accidentally killed Katelyn. They were in some sort of argument, fight, and then afterwards he slit her wrist to make it look like she had taken her own life, but then ended up just deciding to go and dump her body. There's also other investigators who have said that because there's sharp force trauma to the wrists, and the other alternative is this could have possibly been from dismembering as well. So it may not have been play out that way. So we really don't know.
It is interesting though, considering that's what the poem said that he wrote.
Yes.
And I don't know if that other inmate knew that information. I doubt he knew that. So I think that would make the most sense. Of course, we don't know. And
yeah, it doesn't change. It doesn't change anything.
No.
No. It's just, John is the scariest type of person there is. Somebody who can be a cold-blooded killer, a truly evil person, in my opinion, to A, murder someone, and then B, pretend like it never happened, and be this completely different person with no conscience whatsoever. On live camera, being interviewed by reporters.
You don't see that often.
High pressure situations. Yeah, it doesn't happen that often.
For him to come out as much as he did.
Crying at her funeral.
Yeah.
I think is just such...
That is diabolical.
That's diabolical. You're going to cry at her funeral in front of her loved ones and be like, we were supposed to be together and have kids together, and shed tears when you know that you fucking ended her life.
How can you do that? How can a human being actually do that?
Disgusting.
It is beyond. He's like truly a wolf in sheep's clothing. Especially because he just comes across as this like kind of goofy, artistic guy, glass blower. Like, I don't know, maybe that was part of what sold me on him. And he seemed like such a lover boy. Like he seemed romantic, and God, what a just phony. I feel like there's a better word than phony, but he's just Yeah, horrible. And imagine what his wife thought. Oh my God.
Well, I wonder, and this is, I'm putting words into her mouth, but with that footage of him yelling at her,
yeah,
like, I wonder if there's a part of just the people around John who saw that side of him, which was rare that you would see it, but the ones who were closest would. If once you saw that side, you're like, oh, this guy is capable of much else. He's like a true sociopath. Like, he's able to just completely disconnect that truly dark part of himself.
Yep. There's like this Jekyll and Hyde personality. Yeah, I wonder if there was ever a time when even his current wife or anyone else in his life thought maybe he did do something. Maybe he was involved in Katelyn's death after all.
Well, and there was that one friend of theirs who straight up told him, like, I think you did this. And as it was explained in the documentary, was just like, like, he scoffed. He laughed at that idea.
Yep. I mean, like I said, he had me fooled in the first half for sure.
But he shouldn't have been able to fool investigators.
No.
Right.
Mm-mm.
There's enough there and enough weirdness going on, and I just can't get over what happened with the alibis and confirming those. What happened there that you guys didn't go through it? Like, isn't that like first thing you do is figure out everybody's timelines and verify it the best that you can? And maybe they didn't have access to some of the information because they didn't have enough to go get stuff. I don't know. Just it's a little confusing to me why Fairfield seemed like they didn't have enough to further pursue, especially when you get the teenage boys coming forward, being like, "Hey, we saw these vehicles that line up with the vehicles of Palmerton and John," and it's just like,
why didn't they do?
What is going on?
I know.
Here? Why?
It's almost like, I don't know. It sketches me out. Like, why?
I mean, had they been on the trail faster and gotten to the finish line faster, they might have been able to get there. There could have been a completely different approach here.
Yeah.
With questioning John. And it seemed like, too, there was, in the investigation, there was a lot of reliance upon polygraph tests.
Yeah.
And these voice analysis tests. And these are,
like, he passed it. So.
They're tools for sure.
Well, he failed them, but.
They're tools, but they're not ultimately going to help you arrest the individual,
Right.
Like, I get why they do it to some extent, but it seems like there's a little bit of this old school mentality of like, oh, that's going to put us on the right track or not. And didn't really work out that way. So, because then they were going down the trail with Brad for a while.
Yeah.
Right.
Brad's being looked at. And
well, fucking John was throwing him under the bus too. The only reason they really started looking at Brad was because John was like, he was acting weird that night. And like, I can't remember exactly what he said, but he was the one his own friend was trying to frame him for what he did. I wonder if there were times where John was like, damn, I'm really getting away with this. This is crazy. How are they not figuring this out? Yeah,
I wish there was a way that cases like this could just be more collaborative with different agencies. I feel like sometimes it takes weight. Like a department like Fairfield holds on to the case for far too long, and then they get to a point where they don't know what else to do with it. And then eventually another agency comes in, Indiana State Police, and they take over. But the time that elapses between that transfer is too long.
Yep.
And it's like, it almost needs, like, why aren't these investigations more like open source where other agencies can tap in and be like, oh, our resources can help here, and just be more of a collaborative thing. There's still very much this ownership over cases. And some of these departments are just not equipped, or they just don't have the experience and know-how to investigate these things properly. And then things get missed. Things go by the wayside. And families then have to be the ones that go into the police station and be like, what the fuck is going on?
Mm-hmm.
Why is there nothing? I haven't heard from you guys. Is this even a priority anymore? And then they're like, oh yeah, sorry. Well, okay, we'll put somebody else on it. But it's just like, I don't know. There needs to be some major reform around the way that they handle this. Cause I feel like there's so many cases out there, and ones that we cover where it's just like, if we had just gotten, the Mr. Green, the PI, you get a guy from Florida who's got immense experience with missing persons cases and homicides. He comes in and immediately starts making connections. It's like, clearly the investigator at the beginning was missing things, because even the responding Officer Spears, she even was like, Palmerton's weird. Definitely need to look into him more.
Mm-hmm.
She had more of like, the spidey senses going off about what they should be looking at more so than anybody else. But whoever this detective was, which, do we even know her name? We don't even know who the name is of the initial detective on this case, which tells you a lot.
Yeah, she didn't even want to be named. Yep.
She messed up. She definitely didn't know what she was doing, or just, I don't know, maybe was overworked with a lot of other things, but I don't know. It's really unfortunate because I think there was enough here. Had they jumped on it initially when this all went down, they could have gotten more evidence and potentially forensic physical evidence that John may have disposed of, or Palmerton for all we know, and could have like really fucking went hard at them and gotten something else, which could have then gave them the ability to maybe even charge them both with murder.
Yep.
And now John would be getting released
statute.
in 2027.
God, that's just insane. It's infuriating.
For what is clearly a homicide.
Yep. And then think about like if more cases had these anonymous wealthy benefactors come in and just fund a PI like that, how many more cases would be solved?
And the only reason they get PIs involved is because the police ain't doing anything.
Yep.
That's like why PIs even have a job.
Yep.
Is because police aren't willing to do the work sometimes, or can't do it for XYZ.
Or have already fucked something up. Yeah.
And so it's just like, that's why I'm like, why can't this be more collaborative? Why can't police departments welcome PIs? You know, if you hire a PI, why won't they welcome them in to help out and be a part of it? A lot of PIs don't get even taken seriously. So it's just this old school ownership bullshit that a lot of departments do still to this day. People say, it's our department, we'll figure it out, we'll solve it, but it could take us 20 years to do it. But it's in our jurisdiction. So fuck off.
Yep.
Is sad because at the end of the day, victim is victim and their family lose.
Yep.
And now John has avoided a life sentence because of missteps that were had.
God.
It's very disappointing.
It makes me beyond that. It pisses you off to the nth degree, but it's also just like, it's scary. This should scare every citizen, thinking this could happen. I mean, God forbid, to someone you love or yourself, and think about what could happen with the current state of law enforcement. And again, we always have to say this: there's some excellent law enforcement. Oftentimes, the cases we cover aren't those cases.
Paul did a great job. Yeah. There's tons of great ones. There's just there's not enough.
Yeah.
There needs to be more. We need more competent, trained, experienced, especially detectives and individuals in the investigative side of things who know what they're doing, and more collaboration amongst PIs and other departments. And I think you immediately have a better investigative approach to things, because it's like a lot of different types of work, right? You even look at financial work where you have multiple eyes looking over statements, looking over audits, things like that, because having just one person poring over it, or even two people poring over something as big as like a case, is difficult.
Yeah.
And it's easy to get tunnel vision. It's easy to have biases come into play. But then if you get somebody completely from the outside come in and take a look at it, it's amazing what happens whenever that occurs, because immediately, that. I noticed that. Oh, they overlooked that for some reason, but let me put that piece with this piece, and then there we go. Now we're starting to get a full picture. And before we knew it, he had a whole theory. He completely figured it out. Unbelievable.
I know.
Anyways.
Hats off to Paul. Poor Katelyn, man.
I know.
Seemed like beautiful,
poor Dave and
beautiful
Allie.
human, just starting her life. Yeah, Dave. Oh, God, Dave.
Maybe they'll figure out a way to keep John in somehow. Maybe they'll bring some new charges. Who knows?
I'm hoping for the best for them all.
But that's going to be it for us today. Thank you for joining us for this episode of Mile High Podcast. If you enjoyed it, make sure you follow, subscribe wherever you listen, watch. We will see you guys next week, though. Till then,
keep on taking your mind a mile higher.